Well, here we go. So this one, we haven't come up with a name yet for this one. Who's this?
Oh, I had one. Oh no. Margaret?
Margaret. So we're going to be working on Margaret today.
Margaret.
We'll probably have to have a rubric then, eventually.
Oh, I'm sure we'll find one.
Rubric's going to have a character though, so we'll have to save him. Yeah, so I guess we got Margaret here.
Right, so let's give that a second and then we'll
Let her dry.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay, I'll get this ready.
I've been thinking about what our conversation could be about today. And something that both of us are pretty passionate about is the healthcare system.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Don't get me started. Don't even get me started.
So the best book that I've read, and you have also read, I don't know if it's the best book you've read about the system, is An American Sickness.
Yeah. That one's good. But it's super frustrating too because it just points out all the ridiculousness.
Yeah.
of
But
everything.
I do like how at the end there's a section that's like, this is what you can do.
Yeah. I'll tell you, my main gripe with that book, because I liked basically everything else about it, was how she starts talking about health insurance and how it's part of the problem, and then she never really develops that.
Oh, that's true.
Or
It goes
follows up
mostly
on it.
into like pharmaceuticals
Yeah,
and then hospital bills as well.
right. Billing, how. So basically, she's talking all around insurance, which is what makes the billing be that expensive, and allows pharmaceutical companies to charge. They would never be able to charge that much money if people didn't have full coverage insurance that they didn't know how much was getting charged.
Yeah.
Like that guy that.
I think she did a good job when she was talking about like the hospital billing specifically, saying that depending on the insurance you have, every insurance company is going to have a different deal with each hospital, basically.
Wait, I'm gonna do the lidocaine. Ready?
Right.
Stick.
Wait. What? Oh, okay. You
It'll
did it.
numb it up.
Oh, you already did it.
Yeah.
Wait.
Oh, hurry! Wait.
Okay. Yeah, but she explains that each insurance company basically goes to the hospital and is like, okay, this is how much we'll pay for the procedure. How much will you charge us for it? And and so every insurance company, you could have two people getting the same exact procedure, but depending on the type of insurance they have and which insurance company it is, the hospital themselves could be charging completely different things to those insurance companies.
And, well, remember that story? Wasn't that in that book where she talks about how that guy that was getting the monthly infusion for his illness?
It was like the cancer, something like that.
Well, it wasn't cancer, but it was something that was like it was some lifelong thing basically that wasn't going to get better, but he was getting it done. So he had that doctor, was getting it done downtown somewhere in Manhattan.
Yeah.
She moved to a different hospital that was like one of those 5-star marble floor resort hospital places.
With waterfall.
Yeah, and
Water
a
feature.
concierge.
And the marble columns.
Yeah. And he decided, well, I'll just stay with her and go up, stay with the same doctor. It's once a month. It's not a big deal. I can go uptown.
Yeah.
And then he saw his bill, and it was like, it went from, wasn't it like 19,000 a month to 100 and some, or 13,000 a month to 100 and something thousand a month?
Yeah, it was.
It ended up being like
outrageous.
$1 million a year.
Yeah.
The other one, and it was like nothing else changed. Same
Yeah.
medication, same dose.
It's just the location.
Yeah, same doctor. They weren't trying to figure out anything new. They were just giving him the IV every month.
Yeah. That's one thing too. I think a lot of society in general thinks they kind of tend to put hospitals in the same category as like fire departments or police departments, and categorize them as being part of the local government when typically they're private organizations.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they're
and-
businesses. I mean, regardless, they're primarily businesses.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and even, I mean, I guess the closest thing to that before was like a charity hospital or county hospital or something, but that's one thing that's changed too, is there aren't really charity hospitals like that anymore.
Yeah. And typically, unless they're like a really specialized doctor at the hospital, doctors have no say in what's being charged.
No,
Like
not at all.
you, no matter what you're doing, you're getting paid a certain amount of money to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, you could be, removing someone's wart, or you could be fixing a gunshot wound, and you're getting paid the same amount.
Yeah, for me especially, I work
With ER
by
stuff.
the hour. Yeah. Does this feel numb?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's another thing too that people don't often think of. It's like the doctors have no say in this. They just basically work there and then do what the hospital says. And then regardless of what they're doing, they're getting paid the hourly. Yeah. And the hospital is like, well, this is what we charge for this thing based off of your insurance.
Yeah, and especially like hospital-based doctors, and even surgeons, like they might charge their fee or something, but if you're in the hospital, they are the ones that set the rate for like the per minute charge for the operating room and all of those things, which pays for like the OR staff and all that. But
and the equipment that they don't have at their doctor's office or whatever.
Yeah.
That was another thing that I thought was interesting and good that she brought up in the book, was that when you're in the hospital, you have to be on your toes, whether you're the patient or you're with the patient who's at the hospital. You have to be on your toes to make sure that even if a doctor comes in and just checks in on you, they could charge you for that. And it could be that they try to say that was like a
consult.
Yeah, a consult from an
That's
outside doctor that costs extra because they're not part of the normal staff or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a private consult.
Yeah, and that is probably the most infuriating thing, where someone will just come in and say, okay, still alive? You feeling good? Okay, maybe this thing. All right, see ya. And then you get charged $200 for that.
Well, and part of what's frustrating about that too is, like, again, because of insurance, rarely do people look at their bill or care, if they have insurance that's covering everything. And even if they do, they often have to like fight to get an itemized bill to see how much every thing, little thing costs.
And which by law, the hospitals are required to give you an itemized bill if you ask for it.
Yeah,
but
you have to
sometimes
ask.
you have to twist their arm.
Yeah, and I don't think they really ever give it unless you ask either.
Yeah, well, unless you ask, they're just like, this is what it cost.
Yeah. But that's the problem, is like people, if you have insurance, then so many people aren't worried about it because they're, they pay whatever their
they don't look at what it is. Yeah, they
Yeah.
just know, I have 80. My company does, or my insurance covers 80%, and I do 20% of whatever the total is. So what's my copay? And also, I didn't realize how much you can negotiate with the hospital. Like specifically, if you're paying on time all at once, you can negotiate the total way down.
Yeah, well, and I think that's part of it too, is that because they're charging kind of whatever the heck they want, then there's room.
Yeah,
for that.
And it's not just call in and say, hey, give me a cheaper stuff. Like, you have to do some maneuvering and stuff and figure it out. But you can, I think one of the stories that she talks about in the book was a guy got his bill slashed by like 40%.
Wow.
After being like, hey, I'll pay, out of pocket right now. How much do I need to pay for this? And then he had to talk to a couple of people, but eventually they were like, okay, this is what it's going to cost you. And it was like something like 40% less than what it would have been.
See, and that's what's so frustrating, is that most people don't know to even consider something like that.
Yeah, because it's like you go to a store, you have the price, and you pay that. You can't haggle at the store.
Right.
So society has, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not inculcated, but trained us. But that's not the word I'm looking for. But basically trained us to be like, hospital bills are this, and then you pay them, or you don't pay them, and then you get in trouble.
Yeah.
So then with this brief conversation of this, it seems like, well, if you have universal health care, that fixes all the problems. But why is that not the case?
I feel like one of the main complaints is that they talk about how expensive everything is. And the thing that frustrates me again is people not talking about the insurance part of it. That's the problem.
And why it's expensive in the first place.
Right. And that's one of the reasons is full coverage health insurance has made it possible for stuff like this to get that expensive. Whereas because it's like we were talking about before, where it's kind of like this double curtain that nobody really knows how much anything costs. Like if you have insurance, you just pay your premium every month and then, use it when you need it or whatever. And that's all you think about. Of course, if your premium goes up, you notice it or whatever. But anyway, so by not knowing how much things cost, it's not really, people talk about how it's like a failure of the free market, but it's not really a free market. That's the problem.
Not even a free market.
Because a real free market would be, here's how much things cost.
And then compare and then.
Right. Like I need a CT scan, or I need a procedure done or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you find out in one place how much it costs. And if that seems like it's too expensive, you find it another place and see what theirs is.
And that's impossible. You cannot, this goes for doctors and dentists, anything really healthcare related. If you try to call a dentist and say, hey, how much does it cost to get a cavity removed? It's very rare that you'll have the dentist say, well, it costs this much, and then follow up with, and your insurance may or may not cover it. It's always, well, it depends on what your insurance is.
Oh, yeah. Right. And now I think finally there are a few more places that will say like they'll have a cash price, but that's I feel like that's the way it should be. I think most people that are, especially like relatively healthy people, what everyone needs is just a health savings account, which is frustrating that you have to have like only certain people qualify. That should just be something that people are encouraged to have, and then have catastrophic insurance
for when you get the cancer.
Right. Or get in a big car wreck or whatever when you're hospitalized for some reason. And then basically pay for the little things that you have to get done, or go to the doctor's office,
the checkups or whatever.
Yeah, things that aren't, things that are maybe, a few $100s or whatever, or adds up to that, versus thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. But if you have a health savings account, then you have money, set aside. If you need it. If you don't need it, you keep saving,
building it. Yeah. That's one thing too. I think, and I might be conflating it with another thing, but I think, I don't think it's in the book, but an American sickness, also another issue is America has the sickness of treating sicknesses rather than preventing it. We're a treatment system rather than a preventative system.
Well, and it's not even treatment, it's management. Everyone gets the chronic diseases, and instead of actually preventing them in the first place or trying to reverse them, it's just like, well, let's invent a new pill or procedure or whatever, and then we can treat somebody for life, and they can pay us for life to keep managing it.
That, I think, is the perfect way to show that a big reason for the treatment rather than preventative care is part of the problem is Americans are just getting lazier, and they don't want to accept responsibility for taking care of themselves.
Their own health.
Yeah. And the perfect statistic that I heard about this that is infuriating and probably the most outrageous statistic I've ever heard, and I might be getting the numbers a little bit off, but essentially every minute 27 Americans are diagnosed with diabetes, and every day 250 Americans get limbs cut off because of diabetes.
Oh my gosh. And guaranteed most of those are from type 2, not from
not. And for those who don't know, what's the difference from type 1 and
just
type 2?
basically insulin dependent versus non-insulin dependent. They have different names, but one is like, children that get diabetes, well, it used to be the type of diabetes that children used to get, now they get both kinds, is the kind where you no longer make any insulin at all from your pancreas, and so you become totally dependent on insulin to live. Whereas the other kind, type 2 or non-insulin dependent, is your body is kind of resistant to the insulin. So even though you make it, it doesn't work very well. So you have it in your body, but your cells aren't, it's not functioning properly.
And you have to get more, basically, right?
Yeah. So there are medications that people take, pills, and then eventually a lot of those people end up taking insulin. Like the more resistant their body gets to their own insulin, they have to just take, higher doses or basically,
supplement.
Yeah.
And type 2 diabetes is treatable.
Lifestyle.
Not treatable. It's lifestyle related. Basically, anyone who has type 2, you can not have it. You can get rid of it.
Right.
And like you said, the majority, chances are, and I'd have to look at that statistic, but I would be willing to, if I were a betting man, bet money that...
Cash money?
Yeah, cash money. Not a lot, but, a decent amount.
But no joke.
Yeah, 10s and 20s, maybe 1s and 5s, maybe. That the majority of those limbs that are cut off every day are from people with type 2 diabetes that is completely preventable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and yeah, exactly. Some of them would be, could be from type 1 as well. But, but there's so many more people that have type 2. And that's the other sad thing, is that children are getting type 2 now, which used to be
so rare.
They used to call it, basically like a childhood onset and adult onset diabetes.
Yeah.
Was the type 2 or insulin resistant type. Yeah. But now kids get it.
And then because of all those limbs that are getting cut off, inevitably everyone's premiums go up, because there's going to be a decent amount of those people that can't pay for those things. And then we have to pay for it for them.
But that's what's so frustrating too, is that when all of this is preventable, everyone complains about how expensive everything is. They don't really try to get to the bottom of why.
Yeah.
All they do is try to figure out how to get more healthcare coverage, how to get insurance to everybody, instead of figuring out, okay, how do we actually get healthy people? And then still, you just wouldn't need as many. If you still had access to healthcare, great, but you wouldn't need it as much.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be relying on pills to survive. And then need surgeries down the road or whatever.
Yeah, and that's why that statistic with the limbs of diabetics being cut off every day is the perfect statistic to show that Americans have just gotten lazy, don't want to take care of their bodies, and expect to be taken care of.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination too. I think that we've been, for example, just the way that we eat in this country, we've been doing it long enough now that people they just think, oh, well, this is normal. And it's technically normal in that sense, that it's common.
It's become normalized in society.
Yeah. But it's not the way that people have eaten throughout history, except for kings and queens. And it's not how people eat in those places where they live to be 100, a healthy 100, never go to the doctor kind of thing.
And that's not even getting into genetically modified organisms, GMO food, because that's, any food, pretty much every, even natural food, has been genetically modified in some sense or another because of artificial selecting the more sweet of fruit
Yeah.
and then breeding that one rather than the bitter fruit.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't, put in some
Done
foreign
it in a lab
substances
or
or
whatever.
something,
Yeah.
you are modifying those organisms
Yeah.
by selecting the ones that you want to reproduce.
Yeah. The thing about that though is at least it's something that like they're doing at least it's in a more natural way, something that could maybe have happened in nature if the plants were right by each other or something, but yeah, doing it in the lab. And then I think too, just we're so accustomed to processed food now, it's just so normal that we just really like we think of it as food when it's really just like food products,
That's the thing that's tough too, because it's become so normal. And a big reason for that is because it's so cheap and so accessible. I mean, even just fast food restaurants, other than McDonald's and KFC in Asia, if you go to Europe, there's not really fast food. You can't, there's no drive-throughs that you can go to.
Well, and if it is, it's come from this country first.
Yeah, it's McDonald's. So yeah, we've kind of,
and they probably still do it as the exception. Like they'll eat that, knowing that I can't do this all the time.
You don't go there every single day.
Yeah, and probably not even every week.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
well, I think if people could learn like even if they didn't like adhere to some strict, like a really strict thing, like, okay, I'm going to be vegan, like 100% or whatever, or vegetarian or whatever it is. If people would put like, even if they did it gradually, just start eating more foods that are like recognizable as this is what came from the earth, like this,
like a fruit.
Yeah,
rather than,
or vegetables, or
like
just
a chicken nugget that was.
Yeah, just all that. Like basically, stop doing processed and then eat. So eat real food. Do that first of all. Go for a walk every day. You don't even have to like exercise like crazy, and then.
Isn't the recommendation like only 15 minutes a day? It's nothing even.
It's something easy.
Yeah, it's something ridiculous. Like an episode of your TV show is 25 minutes. Just, you have Netflix on your phone. Just walk outside with that while you're watching that.
So I think my dream is if everybody would eat, well, my real dream, like pipe dream, is everybody would eat a whole food plant-based diet and then exercise something.
Tree hugger.
and then have a health savings account and catastrophic health insurance that was cheap,
Like it was like how it started out.
Right. And then be able to go in their local community or neighborhood or whatever, be able to go to the doctor and do, for their strep throat or whatever it is, their, easy things like that they might get, and just pay out of their health savings account a reasonable price for that doctor's visit. And then that, the more people that did that, the less everything would cost, you know. But I think a lot to have real changes, it's going to have to be grassroots stuff more than anything. I don't think government is ever going to fix any of that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's the government is good at putting money into things, and then
good at taking people's money first.
Yeah, taking people's money and then putting
inefficiently,
choosing where to put that money inefficiently as well. And then people then take that, and rather than take care of themselves so they don't have these problems, they do whatever they want. And then when they have these problems, they expect the government, since they live in America, the government's got to take care of me. This is the greatest country in the world. I've got to be taken care of.
Well, and the other thing that's frustrating is people conflate having health insurance with good health.
Yeah.
And they're not related at all.
You could have the worst health insurance in the world and be the most healthy person.
Right. Because
you take care of yourself. It's not your health insurance that's taking care of you, and it's not your doctors that take care of you.
Right.
You see you every day.
Yep. You feed yourself, you sleep enough, you exercise, all those things that are...
Yeah, the doctor's not going to be there with you every day. And if you're having an apple every day, that doctor's going to stay away from you.
Exactly, because that's the rule.
So,
Yeah.
and I think that was, I mean, you went to medical
It's like one
school.
of the main rules.
Yeah, didn't they? Was
Yeah.
that like one of the first things at medical school? They were
Yeah.
like, okay,
Exactly.
just be aware.
They said one of our main problems is people know about this.
Yeah,
And so
it got out.
Yeah, and so
Probably a dropout. Probably got there the first day and was
Totally.
like, well, I'm going to tell everyone,
Yeah.
just eat apples and we don't have to worry about
Exactly.
these guys.
Now, all of that being said about the complaints about our healthcare system, one of the things that we do really well in this country is trauma care, and we are good at innovation. The problem is we're using our skills of innovation to create new multi-billion-dollar medications to treat chronic illnesses instead of being healthy.
Yeah.
But I just say just be healthy.
Yeah, just be healthy. Take care of your bodies.
Yep.